All right, guys. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about Shopify. Okay. If you remember in technology, we talked about SaaS-based software, right? Software as a service. Okay. These are basically software that exists out there. Okay, with already almost everything pre-built. Okay. All you need to do is go in there, do some settings. Okay. Upload information, upload images, upload your products, etc., and you basically have it going. Okay, and what we're going to do today is to actually very quickly cover some of the functions in Shopify itself, which is one of the SaaS-based products. And then the second part of it is we're going to actually take an hour and a half, actually, maybe not even that much, and actually create a website. Okay, I'll actually go through with you and show you how easy it is to actually create a website in there. Okay, so let's get started with this.
So we've been talking about technology till this point. We've talked about custom developed, we've talked about SaaS platforms, we've talked many other types of technology. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time talking about one of the leading SaaS platforms in the world. It's Shopify. It's Canada-based. They have presence in India, across the world. They have hundreds and thousands of merchants using it. So let's go ahead and look at Shopify. If you're located in India, their site is shopify.in. If you're outside, it's shopify.com. So once you go to Shopify, what happens is you can sign up for a free trial. Usually the free trial is about 14 days. You can sign up for it, try it for 14 days, and then start paying for it. Advantage students in India have a special deal where the 14-day trial can be extended longer until they're ready to go live. So if you're a student and you're willing to take on Shopify at the end of this session, let us know. We'll get you an account and get you signed on. Now, what we've done is we've gone ahead and signed up for a Shopify account. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just log in and start to take you through setting up a Shopify website. On the top right, do you see a login button? Now, when you go ahead and click that, when you log in, there's a store address on top, there's an email ID that you have to input, and then your password. When you input all three, just click login, and it's going to go ahead and take you and show you the dashboard. All right, so as you see, it shows my name up on top, right? And this is a dashboard. Once you have the store running, it's going to show you your sales, it's going to show you your orders, your products, etc. The first thing we're going to do today is to look at settings. On the top left, there's settings. When you click it, you go to General as the first setting. And here we're going to start setting up what our store is all about, right? The store details is what we have up on top. Now, when we signed up for an account, the store name we had already inputted, so you see there, clicks and shoots is what we had inputted, and that's what we see there. We can change that to whatever we wish. So if you're in another business, you can actually use another store name. The next two things are your account email and your customer email. Now, account email is something that Shopify uses to contact you, right? So you want to make sure this is something that you're currently using. And customer email is an email ID that you get to put on your website where customers will send you emails, etc. So you want to make sure this is something that somebody's manning, somebody's looking after when customers will send you email through this. Now the next section, once we've set up our store name, account email, and customer email, is the store name and address. Now we have to put our legal business name up here. So in our case, we're putting Clicks and Shoots Private Limited, our phone number, our street address, our city, our zip code, our country, and obviously our state. Now, because we've inputted everything for India here, the next set that we have to set up are these standards and formats. So, I mean, first thing obviously is, what time zone are you located in? We want to make sure that we're talking about India, right? Because this is a global product. Then what is the unit system that we want to use? Do we want to use imperial or metric? And then what is the default weight unit? Are we going to use grams or kilograms? Now, you know what? If your products are very heavyweight products, you probably want to set kilograms because that's how you want to probably track the weights. If it's a lighter product, let's say jewelry, etc., you may want to set up grams because they're lower weight products and you don't want to track them in kilograms. And then lastly, we have to set up our currency, right? This is what currency we want to transact in Shopify. And in our case, we choose INR, which is Indian rupees, okay? Because obviously if a customer is located in India, we would want them to transact in Indian rupees. The last thing that on this that we need to set up is our order ID information. Here, there's two sections, a prefix or a suffix. Now, as you can tell, prefix is something that will come before your order ID. So let's say if your order ID is 1000, what do you want to show before that? Do you want to show a number sign, maybe some characters? In this case, it says EN or something along that line. And then the suffix, what do you want to show after the order number? So let's say if the order number is 1001, what do you want to show after that? So here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually put #web as our prefix, right? That's what now we want to show before all our order IDs. We want to make sure that we can differentiate web orders versus other orders, okay? Once we've set up all the settings, we click Save on the bottom right. And what you'll see is that once it saves, it's going to give you a message back saying that all the settings have been saved successfully. Next thing we'll do is move on to payments, right? That's the second type of setting there. Now, when we go to the payments, now this is where we're going to set up, how do we want to accept payments, what kind of payments we want to accept. First option obviously is PayPal. Unfortunately, PayPal is not live in India just yet, but if you're in another country, you can definitely choose PayPal. In India, we're going to just skip over it because we'll look at credit cards, we'll look at COD, etc. On the credit cards, Shopify has partnerships with several credit card gateways, and you can see them in this list, and you can set up any one of these. Now, unfortunately, if they don't have some partnership with one of these credit card gateways, you're not going to be able to use them until Shopify adds that. But here you have a lot of options, right? You've got Citrus, you've got PayU, you've got Razorpay, etc., etc., etc. And on the bottom, you see a lot of the international payment gateways. So if you're located outside of India, you can choose one of the international ones. Now, to get started, we probably want to have a test, right? We probably don't have our gateway sets. And even if we did, we don't want to use them until this website is live. So in the other section on top, the first thing you see is something called a bogus gateway, right? For testing, that's probably the one that we want to go ahead and choose. So let's go ahead and choose that, because that one we can use to do test transactions, put test orders to the system, make sure everything is working before we make it live. Now we choose that. Now what's going to do is it's going to give us option right below it, right, to go ahead and activate or reactivate it. We go ahead and click reactivate because in our case we had tried to activate it once before. Once we do that, now you see as part of one of your payment gateways. Moving down the list, next thing you're going to see are alternative payments. Now this is something that you can use for Bitcoins and other things, right? Here you also see some of the Indian payment gateways being added as alternative payments. Then manual payments. Now manual payments are things like COD, your wire transfers, your money orders, etc. And in our case, COD is already active, right? If you look at it, when we look at the additional details, it's showing us what kind of text do we want to show to a user, right? So when they choose COD, we obviously have to give them some instructions, right? How would they know how COD is working? So here's where you're going to add all those details which are going to show up on your payments page. It's going to give them instructions. Once they've checked out, what are the next steps for this payment type? Now, once you've inputted this text, you go ahead and click Save on the bottom right of it, and it activates that payment system. Now, in our case, we'll just edit this a little bit just to show what happens. So we'll put the first text, we'll call you to verify your order before dispatching it, and then click Save on it. Now, once you save it, again on the bottom, you see it says saved. Okay, let's get rid of that. The next section is payment authorization. Now, most of you are aware that when a credit card payment happens, there are two steps to it. One is obviously that you go ahead and pay for it, and quickly it authorizes and charges your card. The second type is something called a manual capture payment, right? What happens here is it authorizes the payment, but it doesn't capture it. Now, there's an example that we use in the hotel industry or somewhere else where they usually do an authorization on your card before you show up. Once the charges have been finalized, they go ahead and capture that payment. Now, similar things can happen online. There are pros and cons to using each one of these. It's again your call as a business which one you would want to use. Now moving ahead, once we've set this up, we'll probably go to the next setting on the left hand side, which says checkout. Now checkout is a section that talks about what are the different settings we're going to have to set for our shopping cart, right? Here the first setting is about customer accounts. Do we want to create customer accounts as a requirement or not, right? So here you have first option, accounts are disabled, so everybody checks out as a guest. Second option, accounts are optional. Now in this case, what happens is user can choose to create an account or they can choose not to create an account. And then lastly, accounts are required. Now this is where we actually force the user to create an account if they have to check out. My recommendation in most cases is an optional, right? Because you want to make sure that user has the option. You can't just require them. Next is, how do we want to set up certain types of settings inside the checkout, right? Do we require last name only, or do we require both first name and last name, right? So in most cases, most businesses require both first and last name. Then what happens in company name, right? Do we want company name to be hidden? Do we want it to be shown and maybe as an optional requirement, or is it required? Now, I don't know why, unless you're a B2B business, you would make it required. Most cases, you would make it optional. What would you want your address to be? So do you want the address line to be shown, or do you want it to be optional or required? Again, very similar options. If some country has many different ways to show address, you probably want a second address line in there as well. And then lastly, is the phone number required? Is it optional? Is it hidden? In our case, we put it required because I think it's important for us to capture the phone number if we wanted to contact the customer, etc., etc. Now, the next section is order processing. While the customer is checking out, how are certain settings kind of defaulted in, right? The first setting talks about, do you want the billing address and shipping address being the same? This is the most common setting across websites in the world, right? You want to make sure it's the same because most cases people are shipping to the same address as where their credit card is billing from. Next is, if a customer abandons their checkout, when do we want to send them an email reminder? Now, what happens is customer puts something in their shopping cart, they leave. We would want as a business to reach out to them and remind them, listen, you left something in your shopping cart. In our case, we are going to try to choose 6 hours because that's something that we want to do. There are businesses that are outside of Shopify that may have 2 days, 3 days, 4 days as an option. In our case, we'll leave it at 6 hours and see if we can remind a customer once they've left in 6 hours that listen, you left some items in your shopping cart. Now, you can also choose to say never because maybe you just don't want to remind them. But in most cases today, you get reminders from several places after you leave the shopping cart. Now, one next thing you can do is you can also, if you look at it, it says customize abandoned checkout notification. Now, these are emails that are going to be sent out to the customer, right, for an abandoned checkout. Now, let's look at the email itself, right? First, you can actually edit the email subject. So what do you want the customers to see when they get this email? And next is, what is the email body or the HTML that's being sent to the customer? Now, if you understand the HTML a little bit, you'll understand that some of these things are showing different points from the order, right? So billing address, etc., that the customer may have already filled in. So it kind of looks customized to each particular customer, right? So here you can change the text, right? What do you want the customer to see? Once you've changed it, you save it, come back, and again, next time an email will be sent out to that customer. Now, moving on. Collecting consent to send promotional emails. This is the most common thing. Do you want to capture customers' email ID and by default have them agree that we'll be sending them some promotional emails? The customer by default may choose not to agree, or you can disable and hide this field, right? You have 3 options. Most businesses will probably want to choose number 1 because it's easiest, things get defaulted in, etc., right? But again, it's our call. Maybe we want to use disable and hide as well. Next is, after an order has been paid, how do we want to take care of fulfillment of the items on the order, right? First option, automatically fulfill the order, right? So what happens is as soon as order comes in and if there's inventory, it would automatically capture that inventory and fulfill it. Now, this is a common trend when it comes to systems, right? That ERP systems, that if an order is placed and there's something in inventory, it will go ahead and fulfill it. Second option is automatically fulfill only the gift cards. Now, what happens in gift cards is because there's unlimited inventory, right? We can make as many gift cards as we wish. You probably want to go ahead and fulfill that anyway, and then manually fulfill any other order line item there is, or any other product that's in that order, because you may want to check inventory, you may want to check if the color is available or size is available, etc. And lastly, do not automatically fulfill anything, right? So basically when the order comes in, somebody has to review it and then go ahead and manually fulfill each and every line item that's on that order. Now, a lot of businesses ask which one do we prefer. If you're maintaining inventory, my guess would be you choose number 1. If you're not maintaining inventory, choose number 2 or number 3, because that's probably likely good for you, because otherwise you're going to fulfill it and not have it. The customer will find out that you're shipping something, then you'll cancel the order. Now, moving on, after an order has been fulfilled and paid, what do you want to do with that order, right? Do you want to keep it in your dashboard? Do you want to move it, right? So there's an option to automatically archive the order. Now, it's your choice. As a business, you may want to keep the orders in the dashboard for a few weeks before you move it, or you can choose to, as soon as it's done, fulfilled and paid, move it into an archive. So again, your call. Here, we'll choose automatically archive it. And then, if there are any tracking scripts or ROI tracking codes that have to be put in the checkout, we're going to put it here, okay, which is additional scripts section. Now, a lot of people ask, what are these things? So there's a lot of ways to track conversion tracking, right? There are systems like Adobe, etc., that give you ability to put analytics besides Google and all. So their tracking codes would go here, because you'll be able to track what has checked out because of their efforts, right? Or let's say that you have a partner website that's driving traffic to you. They may give you a tracking code to see if they can track the sales there. Now, next is the checkout language, right? What is the language that we want to use? Now, in most cases across the world, you'll find English, right? And in India also, we're going to be using English. But if we wanted to use other languages, you can click on Manage Checkout Language. And once you click Manage Checkout Language, it'll show you all the options. And you can choose something else, but we'll leave it as English, because India, we're going to go ahead and assume that English will be the language of choice. So the next section are going to be your legal terms, your policies, etc., right? The first one is your refund policy, second one being your privacy policy, third one being your terms of service. Now, all three of them are required when it comes to any website that's launched on the web, right? First one talks about when a person buys a product or service, and if they want a refund on it, what are your policy around it? Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? Are there other conditions? Are they going to have to pay for return shipping, etc., etc., etc.? But if you don't understand how to build this policy, Shopify gives you an option to generate a sample refund policy, right? So basically, you click the button on the top right, and it shows you some basic policy that exists. Now, you can go ahead and edit this as per your own wishes, because each policy may be different. You can do the same thing for privacy policy and same things for terms of service. They give you sample ones, but again, if you don't want to use these, you can probably find optional ones on the web, okay? Once we edit this, we click Save on the bottom right. It's going to save all of our settings that we just set up for checkout, okay? And then we move on to our next section. So next setting we're going to talk about is our shipping settings. This is where we set up our different shipping methods, our shipping rates, etc. So let's go ahead and click on shipping on the top left, okay, and the settings section. And what it's going to show us, first of all, is where we're shipping from. Now this is very important, right? Because all of our rates, etc., will be calculated based on where we're going to ship it from. Plus, customers have to understand where the product is coming from. So we can edit that section, right? It already shows you an address that we've already put, as part of our earlier settings in general. But we can change that if we want. So if we have a warehouse, etc., in another different place, we can actually edit that section and put that here. The next section talks about shipping zones. Now, this is how we set the rates, okay? So here, it's already brought in two, domestic and rest of the world, because that's probably most common. In domestic, it talks about standard shipping and heavy goods shipping. Now, again, we have the option of setting this as the way we want it, right? We can add shipping zones, we can delete shipping zones. So let's go ahead and try to add a shipping zone. Now, we can try to add shipping zones based on different countries. We can add shipping zones on other things, but let's assume we're keeping it domestic and international only. We're not going to do country to country in our case, okay? In domestic, you see we have two settings already done, right? Standard, which talks about 0 to 5 kgs, what is the price? And then if it's over 5 kgs, what is the price? Because a lot of times your shipping charges are based on the weight that it's being shipped out. In our cases, we've chosen 8 rupees per kilo for standard shipping. You know, what we're going to do is we're going to actually go ahead and delete the ones that are currently here, because we don't want to use the based on kilos, right? Because we probably want to do an order value. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete the current shipping, right? So first, standard shipping, we'll delete that, right? Now, once it finishes this, what we'll do is we'll go to heavy goods shipping. We'll do the same thing. We'll delete it because we don't want to use this either. Okay, let's do that. Once it comes back out, right? Okay, so once we've deleted the two domestic ones, we're going to go ahead and add shipping rate. Now, when we do that, on the top left, you see it says add shipping rate. It says free shipping based on order price, based on order weight. So we're going to go ahead and choose based on order price, okay? Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say that every order, right, that's above 500 rupees, right? So we're going to put minimum price of, let's say, 500. That can go up to whatever maximum price, right? It says infinity, so let's leave it as an infinity. We're going to say that that ships for 0 cost, and go ahead and save it. So now you see there's an error that came up, right? The error is I forgot to put in the name for the shipping service. So let's put a free name, and let's go ahead and save it again. Now, again, now you see it's added one. It's called free name, 500 to 500 and up, 0. Okay. Now, second, what we're going to do is we're going to add another shipping rate that talks about 1 rupee to 499 rupees. Okay. So again, based on order price. Now here we have to obviously put some paid. So that's what we'll do. Choose between minimum price of 1 rupee, because obviously we have something above 1, and going up to maximum price of 499 rupees. And we're going to say, listen, we're going to charge 50 rupees for it. So go ahead and save it. Now you'll see that we'll now have two different types of shipping rates, right? 1 to 499 and 500 and up. Okay. Now, obviously, customers that are obviously buying more from us, we're giving them free shipping. Others, we're saying we're going to charge you 50 rupees for it. Now, if you wanted to, right, you can also set shipping rates based on weights, right? We didn't do it, but if you look at the top option, right, it says add shipping rate. You can click on based on order weight, and based on that, it can actually add shipping rates based on how much it was weighing, how the system was originally set. Now, if we look at international shipping, let's go to international shipping. Now here it's already set by weight, just like it defaulted to. So we can choose to, put a different rate on here. I think 18 rupees is way too low per kilo. So what we'll do is we'll put 200 rupees between 0 and 20 kilos. If a product is shipping internationally, we're going to charge a customer 200 rupees, okay? Maybe too low in our case, but for sample, let's use that. Now, if we wanted to, and we were located internationally, there's something called Enable Carrier Calculated Shipping at Checkout. Now, what this is if you use FedEx, DHL, UPS, USPS, and US and other countries, they give you an ability to link their systems to Shopify, and they will do your shipping estimates for you. You don't need to put rates yourself. So based on the weight of the product or weight of the total order, they'll go ahead and give you shipping estimates. But in our case, in India, most of these guys are not active, and even if they are, they don't have the APIs ready. So we're not going to set this up. But if you're abroad, please go ahead and set this up, because it's easier than actually specifying shipping rates all through the process. Next comes, how do we ship, right? What are the different package types that we'll have? Now, in package types, you see we have one defaulted already, and let's leave it at that. But if you wanted to and you had different packaging types, you can go ahead and put that there. Once we've set all this up, we can move on to our next setting, which is taxes. Now, that's very important in all cases. India especially, there's a lot of calculations around taxes in India, and we can set it up all here. Now, there's multiple types of taxes that you can set up here, right? If you look at tax settings on top, the first option it talks about is all taxes are included in my price. Now, this is something where the tax will be calculated in the price. So when the price is being shown to the customer, it's going to include whatever tax calculations we put, okay? So the customer gets to see one price, okay? It's not going to separately in the shopping cart show the tax bucket. So let's say in this case, it's showing an example up there of €1. Now in €1, it says if there's 20% VAT, then it's going to be 17 cents or 17 whatever cents part of euro, that's going to be taxes, and that's going to be shown to the customer, okay? So it's important that do we want our prices to be included with taxes, or should it not have taxes? In our case, we'll say all taxes are included in my prices, okay? Now, we go ahead and save it. So let's just wait for the system. Now you see it says taxes have been saved. Now here we can specify the different tax rates for India. So if we click on India, it's going to show us all the details across all the different 36 states. What are the different VAT rates, etc., that have been set. Now here, if you notice on top, there is 12.5% as country tax. Now federal tax in some countries it's called. We can change that to 15%, save it, and it's going to change it across all the states. Now with GST, obviously this will be easier because we'll be able to implement this across the country. At this point, several states have different tax brackets, and as such we can specify by state if we wanted to. So let's go ahead and click save on the top right. It's going to save that, right? It says the savings have been, it says that tax settings have been saved. Now moving on, there's several different types of what are action points in Shopify, right? Or they're called notifications, right? These are everything from your order confirmations, if an order is canceled, etc., etc., etc. These are actually touch points where the system or the business wants to reach out to the customer, okay? So at every touch point, you'll have an email that gets sent out, right? So what happens here is it's giving an option to go ahead and customize each one of these touch points. So if you look at the order section, talks about order confirmation. Now in order confirmation, what is the email that's going to be sent out to that customer? Then it has all these other options as order canceled, order refund, draft order invoices, etc. If we want to customize, we go ahead and click the order confirmation link, right? And it's going to show us an HTML of the email, okay? Again, very similar like the one we saw before. Here you can go down. If you're well versed in HTML, you can actually completely change this. If you're not, you probably want to change only some of the text in this, right? You probably don't want to change too much. If you make changes, go ahead and save it. If you don't, let's get out and let's go back to our email templates. Again, all the different types of templates can be changed here. So we can go down the list. Now let's say if a gift card is created, what is the template that we want to send out, etc. Shipping, fulfillment request, shipping confirmation, etc. If anything's related to a customer, what are the types of emails we're going to send out? And again, like I said, you can modify each and every one of them. So once we set up notifications for customers, the next set is setting notifications that we may want to receive, right? So when a new order comes in, we probably want to get an email. Maybe a new order comes in and we want to get an email on our mobile. So here we can set up templates for emails that have to be sent out as order notifications to us, okay? So we can go ahead and set that up. Again, we can customize the email the same way that we wished. The next setting that we want to probably look at is gift cards, right? These are cards that you probably want to have set up on your site that people can purchase, give as gifts, and then they can be redeemed once the customer wants to buy something from our website. Now, it says, gift cards never expire, or gift cards can expire in a certain time period. In most cases, you probably don't want to make it never expire. You probably want to choose something, how many months or days after purchase that it expires, because there's a big industry where if gift cards are not expiring, the business cannot make the extra money. It's said that in retail, certain percentage of gift cards are never redeemed, right? And the retailer actually gets to keep that as just net profit. So in my strategy, I would actually ask you to put some expiration, because whatever doesn't get used is net profit for the business. The next setting is files. Now, this is where all the files that we upload into Shopify to be used are kind of listed, right? Here, we're already seeing files here that show different images, right? For the Visa card, for store credit, etc., etc. But if we want to use certain files, we can actually upload them to this section, use the URL that it's shown, okay? Now, moving on. The next setting is accounts. Now, this is where we talk about our Shopify account. So it shows us when we've been member since, it talks about what our plans are, and then billing information. Now, once we want to go live, how will we pay for it, right? So we would probably want to add our credit card information, etc., to pay for the Shopify account. Now, again, you can probably skip that for now, because when you're going live, you'll need to input that, or you'll need it if you buy any extra things for Shopify. So, here we can try to add our credit card, or we can leave it alone till next time that we need to go live. And then lastly, it shows us our staff members, right? What are the different staff that can use our account? Because here it's only showing one person, but we can add more staff members and give them access to using our Shopify account. So maybe an order processing guy, maybe somebody that's working on our website, etc. Again, there's login services. This talks about what external service can we use to log into the system, right? It's already set for Google Apps. So if you have Google Apps, you can actually activate it, because right now it says disabled. You can activate this, and through Google, you can also log into Shopify. So you don't have to use user ID and password only from Shopify. You can use that as well. And then on the bottom, it talks about canceling or pausing your store if you wanted to. So, if you're going somewhere, you want to pause your store, you can do that, or you can cancel your account, etc. Okay. Now, that kind of finishes our settings that we need to get the store up and live, right? Because we've set up our payments, our checkout, our shipping, etc. There are one more step that we want to probably take before we move on to actually setting it up, which is setting up our sales channels, right? This is where we set up if we want to use our Shopify only as an online store, or if we choose to also use it as a point of sale, our POS system. Shopify does have options of getting a POS package. They also have a Bluetooth solution for a cash register as well, that if you want to buy from them. So we can choose to have online store and point of sale both. In our case, it has both active. If we don't want to use it, we can actually say remove retail package, and it will get rid of the point of sale system. Okay. Now, in case you don't want to use Shopify at all for even an online store, you can also say remove channel. That also get rid of your online store. Now, in our case, we'll leave it alone and get into setting up our online store. Now, when we go into online store, the first thing it's asking us to input are our homepage titles and descriptions, right? What are these things? If you go to any homepage across the web, right, we get to see a title on top, right? If you see your bar, your browser bar, it has some name for that website. In our case, it's showing click and shoots on top, right? That's the title. Now, here is where you can actually change that homepage title and also input meta description. Now, meta descriptions are used as search engine optimization techniques, okay? And we cover that in detail in our content as well as in our SEO strategies. So you can find more details there. But here, what we're going to do is we're going to add our homepage title, right? Call it cheapest cameras and accessories, right? Because that's what we want to sell. That's the kind of store we want to create. And then next is we'll go ahead and put a meta description that we want to probably display to search engines like Google, right? This we want to use keywords that we want Google to pick up from us. So in our case, let's go ahead and put keywords that are related to the types of store that we want to create, right? Cheapest cameras, lens. We probably want to put names other companies also that we probably want to use on our website because that may drive certain types of traffic. So let's say camera bags from Nikon, Canon, etc. So again, we can continue to input all the different keywords that we want to be searched on, right? Because these will be keywords that a user comes and puts on the search engine, and we want our site to come up. So we'll go ahead and input some test data here just to kind of show what can be inputted. Once we do that, so once we finish our meta description, we move to our next section called Google Analytics. Now this is where we're going to put a code that Google gives us to track all kinds of traffic and conversion data from our website. Now this, we obviously have to go to our Google account and get the code and input it here. Now again, we have a whole section on Google Analytics. So you probably want to go to that section to understand everything about analytics and then maybe come back and input that code here. The next section talks about a Facebook pixel. Now again, Facebook also tracks for you what customers are looking at, etc., right? And how the ads are performing on Facebook. So we can again go to Facebook, get that pixel and input it here. Now, again, all the details are covered in part of our social media strategy. So we can go through that section and then come back here and put our Facebook pixel here as well. Now, when we come as default, it's put a password to our storefront. So when somebody comes, they have to input a password to move ahead in our store. Now, till we're developing the store, we can probably leave the password in there. But once the store is ready to go, we probably want to take this section out because we don't want people to input passwords to just enter our storefront. So for now, let's leave it. But remember, come back here and turn it off once the store is going live. So let's go ahead and click save on the bottom right. And now it's going to again give us a message. Okay, that settings have been saved. Now let's get out of that. Now we're done with our settings. Okay.